Hi everyone, it's Kris Swiatocho with the singlesnetwork.org ministries. So I'm going to talk to you about why we should start singles ministries in our churches, in our organizations, in our communities, and some of the reasons why we shouldn't. We're going to talk in other videos on how to the basics on how to start, and even some leadership development basics. But right now I'm going to talk a few things about singles ministry and kind of the reasons why some people start them and some people don't. Now, in our country, over half of our country is now single, which is just crazy to think that 54% of all Americans are single. In England and other countries, the numbers are also rising. We're just seeing it grow everywhere. I stated in one of my other videos that, the largest demographic within that is 27% are never married. We're seeing the numbers continue to rise because simply people are not getting married. So what are some of the reasons why people want to start singles ministries within their churches, and some of the reasons that we shouldn't? So I'm going to go through some of them, and this information is on my website at thesinglesnetwork.org in the form of an outline that you can download and print and send to your pastors, send to other singles leaders that can kind of help you know why you're doing this and why you shouldn't be doing this. Because a lot of people really want to start singles ministry because they just need a social life. That is not the reason to start singles ministry. I can tell you the countless phone calls that I get, primarily from women that are empty nesters that really just want a social life. They just feel alone, they're lonely sitting at home on a Friday night, and they want to start ministry because they need something to do. Wrong reason to start singles ministry. Singles ministry is hard. It's one of the most difficult ministries to do because we have such a diverse group of people coming from such a diverse background. I always tell people that, when people come to church, pastors a lot of times will say, singles have more problems than marrieds, and that's one of the reasons why we don't minister to them, because they're just so troubled and etc. And I go, Pastor, everybody has the same problems. And how I know is that because, I used to greet for many years in my church, and people who, I watch the married people get out of their cars and fight with each other. And so then they all of a sudden they're happy and wonderful. They walk into the church, and you don't know that she has a food problem, and you don't know that he has a computer addiction problem. You don't know their problems. You don't know that their kids are struggling. You don't know their financial situation. But singles, we come to church and we are where we are. Our family is our church. It's our community. So the perception is that we have more problems because we share them. But in fact, there's only one of us instead of two or more. And so a lot of it is a misconception about who we are and what we're about and what we can contribute to the church. So I'm going to go through just a few things why singles ministries fail. Not every church is called to have a singles ministry, but all churches are called to minister to singles. And so even though you may have a large demographic group of singles that are going, and maybe younger singles, doesn't mean you need to have a singles ministry. But how do you minister? What are some ways that you can minister to singles? Maybe you can offer divorce care. Maybe you can offer grief share. Maybe you can offer babysitting for single moms. Maybe you could offer a mentor program for older singles and younger singles, or older married people to younger married people. One of my pet peeves in singles ministry or in churches related to singles is that, the second most important decision you'll make in your life is who you're going to marry, but it's not the second most important ministry to people in the church. So how do singles get married? How do they find healthy relationships? Who teaches them on what that looks like, dating and courting and intentional friendships, intentional dating? So I guess we just want them to figure it out, and then we want to fix them once they're broken. And so one of my things is, what can we as a church do to minister to singles who want to be married? Because most all do want to be married, but maybe not this very moment. And so by having ministry to them, by having things specifically to help them, having counseling available in the church, having a grief program, having a 20-something, social ministry, or not social, but like an outreach ministry, doing mission trips, all of these things geared towards reaching that demographic is ministry to them, but not necessarily a ministry of them. But most churches stay away from it completely, and they're missing this amazing group of people that can do so much for the church. Another is they try to imitate other church programs that are not necessarily workable at their church Their church singles ministry comes in varieties of forms. You may have a church down the road that has an incredible single parent ministry, and you might actually offer a really good divorce care ministry. So for me, it's like, well, don't try to imitate or duplicate what they're doing. Let them be really known for that, and you be known for what you are. Because I find with singles, they don't really care about the church denomination or how big the church is or those types of things. It's more so community for them. They're going to go where they feel that their needs are being met. So unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, they may go to church A for divorce care, but they go to church B is where they tithe and where they sow and where they spend their time. So I personally don't care. I just want to minister to singles. But instead of trying to be everything and every kind of single ministry capacity, offer every type of program, you might just say, you know what, we're known as the singles ministry that does mission trips. And although we don't offer divorce care, we don't have single parent care, we do have some churches that we work with that have those services, and we want to suggest that you maybe go and use some of their services. Some churches, probably pastors would like that advice, but I'm just saying you cannot be everything to everyone. And so you might just have to find what works best for you and specifically what God is calling you to do. Are you praying about that and asking God, what should you be as a singles ministry? Another one here says, if leaders get overworked and overcommitted trying to do it all in 6 months. We're such a microwave society. Everything is so fast today. And so one of my favorite people in the Bible is Nehemiah. And Nehemiah teaches about how he felt a call to go and minister and to build the walls, but yet God didn't release him till somewhere between 4 and 6 months, depending on how you interpret the scripture. But before he was released, and in that time he had to plan and prepare. A lot of times people will call me and they want to start it the next day. They don't want to do what it takes, all the research, the resources, the building the team. They don't want to do what it takes to actually start it. They just want to start it. And so they get ahead. They end up doing all the work themselves. They get overcommitted and they burn out. And so we definitely don't want that to happen. And so we want to be really careful that you're not starting the singles ministry just to meet your personal needs, but you definitely see it as something that God has called you to do for everyone, and especially those in your community and church. It says that, it's so funny. They don't develop a leadership structure or outline the goals of the ministry, and it's the same 1 or 2 people doing everything. Some of you are probably watching this and going, I'm that same 1 or 2 people doing everything. And you know what? That's not what God called ministry. For a lot of ministries that I go and visit and I talk to on the phone, it ends up being about 20 women and 2 weird guys. And that's ministry. And so some of the frustrations I hear are, well, Kris, why is it that there are not enough men? Where are all the men? Well, I address some of that on my website. You can definitely read some of the articles. But in a nutshell, in their 20s, single adults come together. It's pretty even. There's even men and women. And as we age up, the numbers go down. Partly is that, when there are divorces in the church, men typically are the ones who leave and the woman stays with the children. As we age up, women are still outliving men. Also, church for some men means you're going to share your feelings, and we don't want to do that. It makes them vulnerable, and it's a place where they have to get emotional. Worship music gets emotional. And so for some men, it's not a place they want to be vulnerable. They don't want to cry. They don't want to show their feelings. So if you add all those factors together, and also the fact that we're not doing a whole lot to reach them, specifically single men, then you're going to see those ratios, those percentages. But I have something that I do every morning, and around 9 o'clock every morning, I have an alarm on my phone, and it says, pray for healthy men to come into our ministries. You do have to pray, and I believe if you pray every day and get others to pray every day for healthy men to come into your singles groups, to your Sunday school classes, to your churches, to your events, your conferences, I believe you will see the numbers increase. I just put it on my heart because, even you go back to the beginning of time in Adam and Eve, you have a woman who wasn't satisfied with what God had given her, and she went looking for something better. She went looking and she got food, which really says a lot about us. But then the man, instead of, the fact that he had the first relationship with God, he instead allowed himself to be led by this woman away. And so we're seeing right from the beginning of time where men have some identity issues, women have identity issues, and that's the enemy, and that's what he likes to do. He wants to confuse us. He wants to skew our view of who we are, who God says we are. And as a result, we lose our identity. And so for women, coming to churches is no big deal. We're going to come to church. We're going to come for fellowship. We're going to come for help. We don't mind the emotional part of it. We know we need God. Doesn't mean we're all following God, but we need God. But men, it's a little bit harder. And so that's why you have to pray against the enemy. You have to bind the enemy. You have to pray and intercede on their behalf. When men get there, you have to encourage them. You have to support them. You have to affirm them. Women, you need to stop being the man. Let the man open the door for you. Let him be the man that God has called him to be and affirm him in that. But that's a whole nother video. And it does take us to be committed to be who God has called us to be as a female and as a male, and allow those roles to be in the church. So let's keep going. So another one, it's important that all of our singles ministries not only have a team of leaders, but also co-leaders. We typically, a lot of times, will try to lead things by ourselves, but we need a team. And I'm going to address that in another video on how to build our team. So this is a thing that I want to just share with you. It's caution about women leading singles ministry. We know that in ministry, men who lead will grow men and women. Women who lead and men together grow men and women. But women only grow women. And so if you're watching this, you probably have seen it, that if women are the representation, and as a man comes into that ministry and he sees that it's a bunch of women running things, it will be a turnoff for him, and he will not come back, because he's looking for someone that he can be mentored by or led by. And so I strongly encourage you, before you ever start any singles ministry, I strongly encourage you to make sure that you have a male that is co-leading with you, or a woman that is co-leading with you, because we want men to minister to men and women to minister to women. And we want those relationships, that representation from the beginning right there at the front, so that from that point on, men can build men and women can build women. And we start getting those men in our ministry that we so desperately want. So just a caution. Now, you may say, Kris, there are no men, or I don't even know anybody who can lead with me, or the men I have are just kind of wimpy. I get it. Then get a married man, a married couple to help you. Oh, married people. We don't want married people in our singles ministry. Yes, you do. They're great, especially those that were single before or came out of singles ministry. They're amazing. You don't need to be babysat. It's simply a resource. It's a support, and it will help you. Having a married man that can help reach single guys, it's a good thing. So be thinking of that as you progress with wanting to build ministry. So here are some reasons that we should not start a ministry in our church community. We do not want to give singles a club. They don't need a social club. I will talk more about this in the next video of the reasons why we don't want to have a singles ministry, but also about social. Socials are great and I love them, but I prefer to call them intentional fellowships or strategic fellowships, because they need to be about how we're going to build the body, how we're going to build the ministry, not just give singles something fun to do. Because other churches have one, we don't want to have a singles ministry, because singles want to get married, although heaven forbid you meet your spouse in church. I just don't understand churches in that whole area, but that's, again, personal frustration. But that should not be the only reason why you have a singles ministry, although I would say most of you, that isn't the reason. You definitely want community and support and friendship, but heaven forbid you meet your spouse in your singles ministry. I think it would be awesome. And because singles have demanded that the leadership start a singles ministry. That is not the way to do it. There is some strategies on how to go to your pastor and talk to him. One of the things that I recommend is that you do as much research as possible to find out who are the singles coming to your church, who are the singles in the community, and set up an appointment with your pastor. Go as a male and female, have your data ready, have the information ready, that you've done your homework. Maybe you've gone to my website and collected some data, you've called me on the phone and got some information, and then go to your pastor, letting him know you've done your homework, you've been praying for a while, and you present it to him or her I know there's a lot of women that are doing leading or pastoring in churches today as well, but you go to them and you say, this is what God has called us to do. We've done our homework, we've done our research, we know what we want to do, we've come up with a name, etc. We've come up with a vision. Would you be open to having this in the church? And then asking that pastor what you can get from them, what you want from them, what are you expecting the church to do? So these are just some of the beginnings, some of the starts of reasons why we should or shouldn't have a singles ministry, but I'm going to address why we should in another video that's going to lead us into how to start, how to begin the basics of starting a singles ministry. So this is Kris Swiatocho with the singlesnetwork.org ministries.